On our program this week, the natural mechanisms of flight, the chicken and the egg enigma, and the mystery of bird migration. Our fascination with birds is mixed with frustration. They can fly, and we can't, at least not naturally. We humans have achieved our dream of flying only partially. We need airplanes or rockets to fly, whereas birds do it naturally, effortlessly. We admire them for their beautiful plumage and melodious song. But what impresses us most about birds is their ability to fly. Birds are believed to have evolved from reptiles. The discovery of the Archaeopteryx, a bird fossil presenting both bird and reptile characteristics, has reinforced that belief. Indeed, the 150-million-year-old Archaeopteryx has a bony reptilian-like head and tail. And yet it has a feature that is specific to birds: feathers. Birds are highly adapted for flight. Often acrobatic, their flight consists of abrupt turns, soaring, gliding, looping, even diving into water and swooping onto their prey. Flight requires body structures that are both light and very strong. The bones of birds are hollow, making their frames extremely light. In addition, several of the bones of the rib cage and backbone are welded together, reinforcing the frame's solidity. Only the vertebrae in the neck retain great mobility. The sternum, located on the anterior thoracic ribs, is very pronounced. It extends into a ridge, the carina, which supports the wing's powerful muscles. A bird's wings can make up 30% of its total body weight. When in flight, birds expend a considerable amount of energy flapping their wings and need a lot of oxygen. Their respiratory system is therefore highly efficient. It consists of air sacs that fill all the cavities in the body. These sacs are connected to the lungs and cavities of the bones and act as oxygen reservoirs. They also keep the body cool. The flight movements keep fresh air circulating through the air sacs. The air in these sacs also makes the bird lighter. Thanks to their lightness and arrangement, the feathers protect the bird against cold and wet and add to its lifting capacity. The rectrix, or tail feathers, act as a rudder. The wing feathers give the wings a slightly domed shape with aerodynamic properties. During flight, the leading edge of the wing is directed upwards. Most of the air is thus diverted under the wing. This creates lift because the pressure is greater on the underside of the wings than on their upper surface. The more the bird tilts his wings upwards, the greater the lift. However, to propel itself forward, the bird makes a figure-8 motion with the tip of its wings. The tips of the wing feathers then act as propellers, and the force generated pulls the bird forward. Some birds, such as birds of prey and gulls, mainly use what is known as gliding flight. This type of flight is much less energy-consuming since the birds rely on rising warm air currents to stay aloft. Hummingbirds, which beat their wings at a rate of 80 beats per second, expend much more energy, but they can lift off vertically, hover in the air, and even go backwards. Flight requires excellent vision. In some birds of prey, it is 8 times more accurate than in man. As a rule, birds are able to see all around without having to turn their heads. Also, when they look straight ahead, the visual field of one eye is superimposed over that of the other. This binocular vision enables them to assess distances. In addition to their fascinating aerial antics, birds often display shimmering, eye-catching plumage. Indeed, during the breeding season, the plumage of males of most species is especially colorful and stands out from that of the females. This is how they signal their presence to the females. However, the less conspicuous attire of the females helps them escape detection by predators, and they can therefore sit on their nests more safely. The beaks of birds also vary according to the species. The shape of beaks differs depending on the bird's diet. Shorebirds, for instance, have a long, slender bill that allows them to dig up small invertebrates from the riverbed. Hummingbirds' beaks are adapted to the corolla of their favorite flowers. Predatory birds use powerful hooked beaks to tear the flesh of their prey. Since the beginning of time, man has sought to imitate the aerial feats of birds. While he has managed to make machines that will take him great distances through the sky, he has yet to achieve the freedom and ease of the soaring bird.
The egg. What a brilliant invention. A gift from our ancestors, the dinosaurs. Don't you agree? Nothing could be plainer than an egg, you say. Well, then, can you tell me the difference between an egg-producing hen and a meat-producing chicken?
Throughout history, man has raised chickens for their eggs and their meat. Traditionally, they were bred in the barnyard or chicken coop. But times have changed, and poultry farming has become a major industry. A great deal of research goes into improving the productivity of the birds, as well as the quality of their eggs and meat. Hens reach sexual maturity at about 20 weeks. On average, they will then lay 1 egg every 27 hours for a total of about 275 eggs annually. Their hormonal system controls their egg laying. In the ovaries, the cells surrounding the most mature egg cell secrete a hormone, progesterone. Under its influence, the pituitary gland releases another, the luteinizing hormone. This hormone induces ovulation, that is the release of the egg cell into the oviduct. As it gradually progresses down the oviduct, the yolk, made up of the egg cell and the cells around it, becomes coated with albumin or egg white. Finally, before being expelled, the egg acquires a protective shell composed of calcium carbonate. As soon as the egg is laid, the cycle starts all over again. Poultry farmers have tried various ways to increase egg-laying rates. Stress is one of the factors that most limits a hen's capacity to lay eggs. Some lighting programs and even the broadcasting of music have had some effect in calming the hens. But the discovery of a mutation on the sexual chromosome of some egg-producing hens was to be even more significant. That mutation, which makes the hens albino, boosts their egg production. In addition, while they retain the same amount of albumin as those of normal hens, these eggs contain proportionally less yolk. We know that egg yolk is high in cholesterol. It is therefore believed that when these albino hens are used for breeding, their eggs will be much prized by people who want to lower their cholesterol levels. Hens lay their eggs spontaneously without having to mate. However, only fertilized eggs will produce chicks. To raise meat-producing chickens, a flock of roosters and hens are put together in a ratio of 1 rooster for 10 hens. After natural mating, the rooster's sperm is stored in the hen's uterus and can thus be used to fertilize a number of eggs. To permit the embryos to develop, the eggs are incubated for 17 days in incubators which maintain a constant heat and humidity. During this stage, the eggs are periodically tilted so the embryos will develop well. At the end of the incubation period, the eggs are transferred into a hatcher, a well-aerated environment where the temperature is slightly cooler. The hatching occurs 3 or 4 days later. The commercial breeding of meat-producing chickens takes from 6 to 7 weeks. These birds therefore never attain sexual maturity. During the first week of their life, to make up for the absence of their mother, the chick's environment is kept at a warm 32 degrees Celsius. Also, during that first week, bright lights are kept on 24 hours a day so the chicks are able to find the waterers and feeders. Meat-producing chickens are fed a special diet. During their first 2 weeks, they are given a mixture of grains that are very high in vital tissue-building proteins. Very small doses of antibiotics are also added to their feed. These very specific antibiotics have the advantage of substantially boosting the poultry's growth. However, 2 weeks before the birds are sent to slaughter, these antibiotics are withdrawn from their feed to eliminate all traces for human consumption. Contrary to popular belief, hormones are not used in the breeding of meat-producing chickens. As for so-called grain chickens, their diet is not much different from that of other commercially bred chickens. They are simply given a little more room to grow in. Scientists are currently looking into the possibility of doing away with the systematic use of antibiotics and replacing them with a mixture of lactic bacteria. These bacteria, called probiotics, are similar to those occurring in yogurt and have a beneficial effect on the digestive system of animals. They help the animals withstand the stress caused by their breeding conditions and can improve the growth rate of the chickens, which ultimately end up leaner. Lastly, they help to prevent disease. More and more, today's consumers are demanding natural products, free of additives and low in fat. The studies the poultry industry has conducted aim to satisfy these preferences while enhancing the profitability of poultry production.
Many species of birds migrate. Twice a year, millions of them fly thousands of kilometers. Why do they do it? And especially, what invisible thread guides them on their long journeys?
From time immemorial, massive flocks of birds have filled the skies every spring and autumn. Exactly what it is that triggers these migrations and how the birds orient themselves remains somewhat a mystery. As for explaining this, researchers are still at the stage of hypotheses. As a rule, birds that migrate do so more to gain access to abundant food supplies than to escape the rigors of winter. Birds that are able to find food year-round, therefore, usually do not migrate. It is believed that birds time their departure on changes in the photoperiod, or length of the day. Indeed, these changes appear to alter the secretion of some of their hormones. These hormones, in turn, evidently induce physiological changes that give the birds a boost of energy just prior to their departure. An internal clock also seems to prepare the birds for their journey. That clock, probably located in the brain, appears to function independently of environmental conditions. A few weeks before they embark on their long journey, the adult birds of most species molt. That is, they shed their old and damaged feathers, which are replaced by new ones. Before setting off, the birds store up on large quantities of fats, which will be quickly converted into energy. What is most amazing is the migrants' ability to return to the same places year after year. In the vicinity of their feeding and nest sites, they apparently navigate according to geographical landmarks, such as mountains and rivers. However, over long distances, they take their heading from the sun, which they use like a compass. In addition, the sun's position relative to the zenith tells them what their latitude is. Similarly, birds that travel at night set their course, it seems, by the star patterns. However, when the birds fly between layers of clouds that hide both the sun and the ground, they appear to rely on a sixth sense. The brains of birds contain magnetite crystals, a sort of natural magnet. Scientists suspect that these crystals help them to measure variations in the intensity of Earth's magnetic field. The magnetic field decreases gradually from the poles to the equator, and the birds can therefore evaluate their latitude. It seems that birds also use the Coriolis force to orient. That force, caused by the Earth's rotation, deflects moving objects and with particular intensity near the equator. Since the Coriolis force is proportional to the speed of the Earth's rotation, that is negligible at the poles and maximal at the equator, it informs the birds on the latitude of their position. However, none of this can explain the navigational feats of young birds. Indeed, some juveniles embark on their first migration without the assistance of adults. The timing of their departure, the direction to migrate, and the distance they have to fly are apparently programmed in their genes. As accurate as a plane's flight plan, these genetic instructions for migratory behavior are apparently passed down from one generation to another. During their long-distance flights, some birds, such as the snow goose or the Canada goose, migrate in large flocks, flying in V-shaped or single-file formations. One hypothesis suggests these formations present certain aerodynamic advantages. The lead bird would act somewhat as a deflector. By diverting the air current, it creates a corridor behind it, in which air friction would not be as strong, making the flight less energy-consuming for those behind it. According to another theory, the migrants adopt these formations to enhance the communication between them. Research is being done to determine the flight paths the migrants take. The traditional method consists in tagging the birds. The birds are captured in nets. Their age and sex are determined. These characteristics are entered into a computerized file. Then each bird is tagged with a ring made of a light alloy. The metal rings are numbered so that when recaptured, the birds can be identified and their provenance traced in the computer file. In some cases, color rings are added so the birds can be recognized in flight. The information gathered through banding tells the researchers about the bird's movements. Still, how these able navigators orient themselves remains a mystery.
The amazing spectacle of migrating birds required thousands of years of rehearsals. Today, many species are endangered. How sad it would be to interrupt the performance. Do you know of any actors who can sing and fly? All for free.